African woman sold for 100 million to enigmatic Arab tycoon. In a jaw-dropping twist, a wealthy Arab executive secures an African woman for 1 million at a clandestine auction. What begins as a bold transaction unravels into a profound, life-changing discovery. The astonishing truth he unearths will leave you astounded. Brace for a story of bravery, salvation, and an outcome you won't see coming. Before we proceed, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and activate notifications. Your encouragement enables us to bring you more captivating and uplifting tales like this. The grand ballroom of a luxurious Dubai mansion glowed with extravagance. Crystal chandeliers bathed the room in warm light, illuminating a crowd of impeccably dressed guests, their murmurs mingling with the soft strains of live classical music. This exclusive gathering of global billionaires, stars, and influential figures had convened not for artwork or gems, but for something far more contentious, a covert human auction shrouded in mystery. Sitting near the back, Tariq al-Hakim, a reclusive yet immensely wealthy Arab executive, adjusted the cufflinks on his tailored black suit. Known for his enigmatic demeanor and a reputation for making calculated, emotionless decisions, Tariq rarely attended such events. But tonight was different. He had received a cryptic invitation claiming the auction held a secret that could change his life. Intrigued, he decided to see it for himself. The air grew tense as the auctioneer took the stage, his booming voice silencing the murmurs. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your discretion and generosity. Tonight, you are not just bidding on people. You are bidding on opportunities, investments, and lives. Tariq's sharp gaze swept over the stage as the first item was brought out, a young man, visibly frightened, shackled at the wrists. The crowd erupted into a frenzy of numbers and raised paddles. Tariq remained silent, his distaste hidden beneath an impassive expression. The auction proceeded, each human paraded as if they were objects. It made his stomach churn, but he stayed. Something about the event didn't feel right, and his curiosity was winning over his discomfort. Then she was brought onto the stage. The room fell silent as a tall African woman was led out, her wrists bound by golden cuffs that glinted under the lights. Her dark, glowing skin contrasted sharply with the sterile luxury around her, and her posture, though restrained, exuded strength. She stood with her chin raised high, her piercing brown eyes scanning the crowd, daring anyone to look down on her. This, the auctioneer announced with a flourish, is the crown jewel of tonight's event, a rare beauty, educated and, above all, loyal. Starting bid, 500 Salvador. Tariq's heart tightened. The woman's gaze met his for a fleeting moment, and in that split second, something stirred inside him, an inexplicable urge to act. He rarely allowed emotions to influence his decisions, but her defiance, her pride despite her situation, struck a nerve he didn't know existed. The bidding began, escalating rapidly. Voices from all corners of the room shouted numbers, each bid higher than the last. Tariq remained silent, though his hand instinctively rested on his paddle. He told himself this wasn't his fight, that he had no business involving himself in something so questionable. But as the bids climbed, so did his unease. 1 million! A voice from the front row called, drawing gasps from the crowd. It was an older man with graying hair and a smug grin, the kind of person Tariq despised. The auctioneer's gavel hovered, ready to seal the deal. And then, almost involuntarily, Tariq's hand shot up. 1,100,000, he said, his voice calm but firm. The crowd turned to look at him, their murmurs growing louder. The older man scowled but, after a tense pause, waved his hand in surrender. Sold, the auctioneer declared, his gavel striking the podium. To Mr. Tariq al-Hakim! The room erupted into applause, though Tariq barely heard it. His eyes remained fixed on the woman as she was escorted off stage. What had he just done? A man who prided himself on logic and reason had just spent a fortune on a stranger, compelled by a feeling he couldn't explain. As the event concluded, Tariq was led to a private room where the woman waited. She sat quietly, her hands still bound, her eyes watching him like a hawk. The air between them was heavy with unspoken questions. He stepped forward, his voice low but steady. "What's your name?" Her lips parted, but no words came at first. Finally, she spoke, her voice strong and unwavering. "Nia." Tariq nodded. "Nia, I don't know what brought me here tonight, but I intend to find out why." Her gaze didn't waver. "You've bought something you don't understand, Mr. Al-Hakim. But I'll tell you this, I'm no possession. You'll find that out soon enough." Her words sent a chill down his spine. Tariq knew that his decision tonight had set something far greater into motion, and the truth behind it would shake everything he thought he knew. The car sped through the glowing streets of Dubai, the city alive with its usual vibrancy, yet Tariq felt nothing but the weight of what he'd done. Nia sat silently in the back seat, her wrists freed but her posture rigid. She stared out the window, her expression unreadable. Tariq glanced at her through the rearview mirror, his mind swirling with questions. Who was she, really? And why had he felt compelled to save her from that wretched auction? He broke the silence first, his voice measured but curious. "Do you want me to take you somewhere specific? Home, perhaps?" Nia turned her head toward him, her dark eyes locking onto his in the mirror. "Home," she repeated, her tone edged with bitterness. "You don't get it, do you? People like me don't have homes." Her words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Tariq hesitated, unsure how to respond. He prided himself on being decisive, a man of solutions, but this situation felt far beyond his control. "You're not my prisoner," he said finally. "You're free to go wherever you want?" "Free?" Nia let out a dry laugh. "You paid $1 million for me. Do you think the world will just forget that? Do you?" Tariq gripped the steering wheel tighter, his jaw clenching. She was right. The auction's secrecy didn't mean its consequences would vanish. There were people who had seen him there, people who would ask questions. And then there was the matter of Nia herself. Whoever had put her on that stage wouldn't let her go so easily. They arrived at his estate, a sprawling modern mansion perched on the edge of the Arabian Gulf. The towering glass walls reflected the shimmering water, a picture of wealth and isolation. Tariq stepped out of the car and motioned for Nia to follow. She hesitated but eventually complied, her gaze scanning the opulence around her with faint disdain. Inside, Tariq led her to a guest suite, its minimalist elegance a stark contrast to the chaotic events of the night. He gestured toward the bed, the plush linens untouched. "You can stay here tonight. Rest. In the morning, we'll figure out what to do." Nia stood in the doorway, her arms crossed. "And what do you think that will be, Mr. Al-Hakim? Your money may buy a lot of things, but it won't fix this." Tariq sighed, running a hand through his jet-black hair. "I don't have all the answers, Nia. But I didn't buy you. I saved you. Saved me." She stepped closer, her voice rising. "From what? From being paraded like an object. From a life where people like you decide my worth. You're not a savior, Tariq. You're just another man with power, playing at being a hero." Her words hit him like a slap, but he kept his composure. "I don't know what you've been through," he said quietly. "But I do know you're not safe. Not yet." Nia's eyes narrowed. "And whose fault is that?" Before Tariq could respond, his phone buzzed. He pulled it from his pocket and frowned at the unknown number flashing on the screen. Something about it felt off. He answered cautiously, "Mr. Al-Hakim." A deep, gravelly voice greeted him. "You've made quite the spectacle tonight." Tariq's stomach sank. "Who is this?" "Let's just say I'm someone who doesn't appreciate interference in my affairs," the voice continued. "That woman you took, she's valuable, and you're going to return her." Tariq's blood ran cold. "She's not your property. Neither was she yours." The man snapped. "But that didn't stop you, did it? I'll make this simple, bring her back, or you'll regret it." The line went dead. Tariq stared at the phone, his mind racing. He looked at Nia, who was watching him intently, her expression unreadable. "Who was that?" she asked. "Someone who thinks they own you," Tariq replied. "But they don't. Nia's lips pressed into a thin line. They won't stop. You know that, don't you? They'll come for me. For you. Tariq's gaze hardened. Let them try. The soft hum of the ocean filled the night air, but inside Tariq's estate, the atmosphere was anything but serene. Tariq paced the marble floors of his study, his mind spinning with the weight of the call. The voice on the other end hadn't been bluffing. Whoever was after Nia wasn't just angry. They were powerful, and they wouldn't hesitate to destroy him to get what they wanted. Across the hall, Nia sat by the window of the guest suite, her silhouette framed by the moonlight. She looked calm, but her clenched fists and furrowed brow betrayed her unease. The world she'd thought she'd left behind had followed her to this gilded cage, and now she had no idea how to escape it. Tariq entered the room, his steps measured, his face etched with determination. He carried a tray with a cup of tea, placing it gently on the table near her. "I thought you might need this," he said, his voice softer than before. Nia didn't look at him. "What I need is for you to stop pretending you can fix this." Tariq pulled a chair across from her and sat down, his dark eyes meeting hers. "I'm not pretending. I made a decision to help you, and I'm going to see it through. But I need to understand what we're up against." Nia let out a bitter laugh. "You don't know what you've gotten yourself into, do you? The people who put me on that stage, who sold me to the highest bidder, they don't just let things go. They have eyes everywhere, and they'll burn your perfect little world to the ground if it means getting me back." "Then tell me," Tariq pressed. "Who are they, and why are they so desperate to control you?" For a moment, Nia hesitated. She studied him, weighing his sincerity. Then, with a deep breath, she began to speak. "My family lived in a small village in Ghana," she said, her voice heavy with memory. "We were poor, but we had each other. Until the war came. Militias raided our village, killing anyone who resisted and taking the rest of us as prisoners. I was 15. Tariq's chest tightened as he listened, the gravity of her story sinking in. "They sold us," Nia continued, her gaze distant, "to work camps, brothels, anywhere they could make money. I spent years fighting to survive, escaping one hell only to end up in another. I thought I was free when I made it to Europe, but freedom is a lie when you're marked by people like them. They found me. They always find you." Tariq leaned forward, his voice low. "And the auction tonight. How did you end up there?" Nia's jaw tightened. "I was working in a restaurant in Morocco, keeping a low profile. But someone recognized me. Someone who knew what I was worth to the people hunting me. They took me, sold me to intermediaries, and eventually, I ended up on that stage." Her words hung in the air, heavy and raw. Tariq struggled to process the horrors she had endured. He had spent his life insulated by wealth and power, his biggest challenges confined to boardrooms and balance sheets. But this was a different world, one where humanity was a commodity and survival was a daily battle. "They won't stop," Nia said, breaking the silence. "They'll come for me, and now they'll come for you." Tariq's expression hardened. "Then we'll make it so they can't." Nia raised an eyebrow. "You think your money will protect you. These people aren't impressed by wealth. They're ruthless." "It's not just money," Tariq replied. "It's connections, influence, resources. I didn't build my empire by letting threats go unanswered." Nia stood, crossing her arms. "And what's in this for you? Why risk everything for someone you don't even know?" Tariq rose to his feet, his gaze steady. "Because I don't believe in turning my back on people who need help. And because I can't stand the thought of letting them win." For the first time, Nia's guarded expression softened. She didn't trust him, not completely. But there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Hope, perhaps, or maybe just the faintest glimmer of relief. Tariq's phone buzzed, pulling him from the moment. He checked the screen and frowned. It was an encrypted message, unsigned. "You should have walked away. Now it's too late." His stomach turned. The fight was no longer coming. It had already begun. Tariq's fingers tightened around his phone as he read the message again. You should have walked away. Now it's too late. The words felt like a noose tightening around his carefully constructed life. Across the room, Nia's expression darkened as her gaze locked on the screen. She recognized the threat all too well. Who sent this? Tariq demanded, his voice sharp. Nia hesitated, her breathing shallow. It's them, she whispered. The people I told you about. They don't send warnings unless they're already close. Tariq's jaw tightened, his thoughts racing. This wasn't just a threat. It was a calculated move, a psychological strike meant to rattle him, and it was working. He prided himself on being in control, but for the first time in years, he felt the ground shifting beneath him. They're watching us, Nia continued, her voice trembling. They've always been watching. You have no idea how far their reach goes. Tariq met her eyes, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. Then we'll have to show them what happens when they push the wrong person. Nia frowned. You don't understand. These aren't business rivals or competitors. These are people who deal in lives, people who erase anyone who stands in their way. They don't care about rules or power. They care about control. I understand more than you think, Tariq said, his tone cold. But I don't run from fights, and I won't let them take you back. He turned, his movement swift and purposeful, and grabbed his laptop from the nearby desk. Sitting down, he began typing furiously. Nia stood behind him, watching as lines of code filled the screen. What are you doing? She asked. Tracing the message, Tariq replied. Whoever sent it made a mistake by underestimating me. Nia's skepticism was clear, but she didn't argue. Minutes ticked by as Tariq worked, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Finally, he leaned back, his expression grim. They're in Dubai, he said. Less than 5 miles from here. Nia's stomach sank. They're closer than I thought. Tariq closed the laptop and stood, his presence commanding. Then it's time we stop waiting for them to strike. We need to move. Move. Nia echoed, her brow furrowing. You think running is going to help? They'll just find us again. We're not running, Tariq corrected. We're going on the offensive. Before she could protest, Tariq was already making calls. He summoned his head of security, a stoic man named Malik, who had been with him for over a decade. Within minutes, Malik arrived, flanked by 2 other guards. Sir, Malik said, his voice steady. What's the situation? Tariq handed him the phone with the threatening message still displayed. We have an immediate threat. I need full lockdown protocols on the estate and surveillance on this sender. Malik nodded, his expression unflinching. Understood. We'll set up a perimeter and monitor all entries. Nia watched the exchange, her unease growing. You think locking down this mansion will stop them? They're not going to play by your rules. Tariq turned to her, his eyes cold but resolute. I don't need them to play by my rules. I just need them to make one mistake. Nia shook her head. You're underestimating them. And you're underestimating me, Tariq countered. I've built empires by staying 3 steps ahead. This is no different. But it was different, and they both knew it. As capable as Tariq was, he had never faced enemies like this, shadowy figures who thrived in lawlessness, who dealt in fear and violence. As Malik and his team worked to secure the estate, Tariq sat with Nia in the study. The tension between them was palpable, but there was an unspoken understanding now, a fragile alliance born of necessity. You're risking everything? Nia said quietly. Your wealth, your reputation, your life. Why? Tariq met her gaze, his expression unreadable. Because I've spent my entire life chasing things that don't matter. Power, success, money. But none of it means anything if I can't stand up for what's right. Ania's eyes softened, but before she could respond, the sound of a commotion outside shattered the moment. Malik's voice crackled over the intercom. Sir, we've got movement on the north perimeter. Multiple vehicles. Tariq and Nia exchanged a tense glance. The fight they had been preparing for was here. Stay in the study, Tariq ordered, his voice firm as he rose to his feet. No, Nia said, standing as well. I'm not hiding while they come for me. This isn't up for debate. Tariq snapped. You've been running from them for years. Let me handle this. Nia hesitated, but finally nodded, stepping back as Tariq left the room. The study felt suffocatingly quiet as she waited, her heart pounding with every passing second. Then the sound of gunfire shattered the silence. Nia stood frozen, her breath catching as the sharp echoes of gunfire ricocheted through the estate. The once tranquil mansion was now a battlefield. Outside, flashes of light illuminated the grounds as armed men clashed with Tariq's security team. The weight of the moment pressed on her chest like a vice. She stepped toward the window, her fingers trembling as she pulled the curtain aside. From her vantage point, she could see figures darting between the shadows, the beams of their flashlights slicing through the darkness. Tariq was out there somewhere, and she had no way of knowing if he was safe. Her instincts screamed at her to stay put, but Nia couldn't shake the feeling that doing nothing would only make her a target. She scanned the room, searching for anything she could use to protect herself. Her eyes landed on a heavy brass lamp sitting on the desk. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. She gripped it tightly, the cold metal grounding her in the chaos. Suddenly, the door burst open. Nia spun around, raising the lamp defensively, but it was Tariq. His suit jacket was gone, and his white shirt was stained with dirt and sweat. He looked like a man who had just walked through fire. "We have to move," he said, his voice urgent but steady. "They've breached the outer gates. This place isn't secure anymore." "What about your security team?" Nia asked, her heart racing. "They're holding them off, but it won't last. These people came prepared." Tariq grabbed her arm gently but firmly, guiding her toward the hallway. "I have a secure exit. We'll regroup from there." Nia hesitated, her grip tightening on the lamp. "You should leave me. This is my fight, not yours." Tariq stopped and turned to face her, his dark eyes burning with determination. "This became my fight the moment I stood up for you. I don't abandon people, Nia. Now come on." His words left no room for argument. She followed him through the winding halls of the mansion, their footsteps muffled by the plush carpets. The sound of gunfire was closer now, and Nia's heart pounded in her chest. Every corner they turned felt like it could be their last. As they neared the secure exit, a shadow appeared at the end of the corridor. Tariq froze, his hand instinctively going to the pistol tucked into his waistband. Nia's breath hitched as the shadow stepped into the light. A man dressed in black tactical gear, his face obscured by a mask. He raised his weapon, aiming it directly at them. Tariq moved without hesitation. He pulled the gun from his waistband and fired, the sharp crack of the shot echoing through the corridor. The man staggered and fell, his weapon clattering to the floor. Nia stared at Tariq, her chest tight with both fear and awe. "You didn't hesitate." "I couldn't afford to," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Let's go." They reached the secure exit, a reinforced steel door hidden behind a false panel in the wall. Tariq punched a code into the keypad, and the door hissed open, revealing a narrow staircase that led downward. "This leads to the garage," Tariq explained as they descended. "From there, we'll take one of the armored vehicles." Nia followed him, her mind racing. She had spent years running, but this was different. Tariq wasn't just protecting her. He was putting himself in danger for her. The weight of his sacrifice pressed heavily on her, and for the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel: guilt. They reached the garage, where a sleek black SUV waited, its armored exterior gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Tariq opened the passenger door for Nia, his movements quick and deliberate. She climbed in, clutching the brass lamp she still held as if it were a lifeline. As Tariq slid into the driver's seat and started the engine, the garage door began to rise. Beyond it, the night was filled with chaos, gunfire, shouting, and the distant roar of engines. Tariq gripped the wheel, his jaw set, "Hold on," he said, his voice steady. "This is going to get rough." The SUV surged forward, its tires screeching against the polished floor as Tariq sped toward the exit. As they emerged onto the estate grounds, a group of armed men turned toward them, their weapons raised. Tariq didn't slow down. The SUV barreled through, its reinforced front frame deflecting the gunfire. Nia gripped the seat, her heart pounding as the vehicle jolted violently. "Where are we going?" she shouted over the chaos. "Somewhere they won't find us," Tariq replied, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. But as they sped through the gates and onto the darkened road, a pair of headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. Another vehicle, black and unmarked, was gaining on them. Nia's stomach sank. "They're following us," she said, her voice tight with fear. Tariq glanced in the mirror, his expression grim. "Then we'll make sure they don't catch us." The roar of the SUV's engine echoed through the deserted streets as Tariq pushed the vehicle to its limits. The black unmarked car behind them closed the distance with relentless determination. Nia gripped the door handle tightly, her heart pounding as she glanced out the rear window. The enemy wasn't giving up, and their intentions were clear. They weren't here to negotiate. Tariq's focus was razor-sharp, his hands steady on the wheel. "Hold on," he said through gritted teeth. "They'll try to force us off the road." As if on cue, the pursuing car swerved into their lane, its bumper inches from the SUV's rear. Tariq jerked the wheel to the right, narrowly avoiding a collision. The tires screeched as the SUV veered onto a narrow side street, the enemy car hot on their tail. "Do you have a plan, or are we just running until they catch us?" Nia asked, her voice laced with a mix of fear and frustration. Tariq's lips tightened. "We're not running. We're luring them somewhere they won't have the advantage." Nia frowned. "And where exactly is that?" "You'll see," Tariq replied cryptically. The SUV sped through the winding streets, weaving between alleyways and narrow passages that seemed almost impossible to navigate. Tariq's knowledge of the city's hidden routes was unparalleled, and for a moment, it seemed like they might lose their pursuers. But as they emerged onto a wider road, the black car reappeared, closing the gap once more. "They're not giving up," Nia muttered, glancing nervously at the growing dots of headlights behind them. "Good," Tariq said, his voice calm but cold. "Let them follow." Nia's confusion deepened, but she didn't have time to question him further. The SUV suddenly swerved off the main road and onto a dirt path that led toward the outskirts of the city. The terrain was rough, the vehicle bouncing violently as it navigated the uneven ground. The black car followed, its headlights cutting through the darkness like twin daggers. Nia gripped the seat as the SUV climbed a steep hill, its tires struggling for traction on the loose gravel. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice tight. "Trust me," Tariq replied. "They won't expect what's coming." At the top of the hill, the path leveled out, revealing an abandoned industrial site. Rusted metal structures loomed in the moonlight, their skeletal frames casting eerie shadows across the ground. Tariq drove the SUV into the heart of the site, parking it behind a cluster of shipping containers. "Get out," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Nia hesitated but following him as he led her between the containers. The sound of the enemy car's engine grew louder, signaling their arrival. Tariq pulled her into the shadows, his body tense and ready. "Stay here," he whispered. "No matter what happens, don't move." Nia's stomach churned. "You're going to face them alone." "I'm not alone," Tariq said, his eyes scanning the dark. They walked into a trap. Before she could ask what he meant, movement caught her eye. Figures emerged from the shadows. Tariq's security team, armed and ready. Malik led the group, his stoic expression unwavering as he signaled to his men. They had been waiting here, anticipating this very moment. The black car screeched to a halt near the entrance of the site, and 4 armed men stepped out. They moved cautiously, their weapons raised as they searched for their target. Tariq stepped out of the shadows, his presence commanding. looking for me," he called, his voice echoing across the site. The men froze, their eyes narrowing as they trained their weapons on him. "Hand over the woman," one of them demanded. "Maybe we'll let you walk away." Tariq smirked. "You came all this way, and that's the best offer you have." Disappointing. The men didn't hesitate. One of them raised his weapon, but before he could fire, a shot rang out from the shadows. The man dropped, his weapon clattering to the ground. Chaos erupted as Malik's team opened fire, their precision unmatched. The remaining attackers scrambled for cover, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Nia watched from her hiding spot, her heart racing as the sounds of gunfire filled the air. She wanted to run, to scream, but she forced herself to stay still, just as Tariq had instructed. This wasn't her fight, at least not yet. The battle was over in minutes. The attackers lay subdued or fleeing into the night, their arrogance shattered. Malik approached Tariq, his rifle slung over his shoulder. "It's done," he said. "We've secured the area." Tariq nodded, his expression grim. "Good. But this isn't over. They'll send more." Ania stepped out of the shadows, her legs trembling but her resolve strong. "You were right," she said quietly. "You knew they'd follow, and you were ready." Tariq turned to her, his gaze unwavering. "They underestimated us. That was their first mistake. The second will be thinking they can try again." The first rays of dawn broke over the industrial site, casting long shadows across the battered ground. The quiet after the storm was palpable, but for Tariq and Nia, the fight was far from over. Tariq stood by one of the rusted containers, speaking in low tones with Malik, while the rest of the security team secured the perimeter. Nia watched them from a distance, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. She had spent years running, hiding, and fighting to survive. But something about Tariq's unwavering determination struck a chord deep within her. He wasn't like the others she had encountered. He had resources, yes, but he also had an unshakable sense of purpose. And now, for better or worse, he had become part of her story. As Malik walked away to coordinate the next steps, Tariq approached Nia. His expression was stern, but his eyes held a flicker of something softer. Concern, perhaps, or maybe understanding. "We need to talk," he said simply. Nia nodded, following him to a quiet corner of the site. They sat on an overturned crate, the weight of the night's events hanging heavily between them. Tariq spoke first. "They won't stop," he began, his voice low but firm. "Not until they get what they want, and I need to know what that is." Nia hesitated, her fingers gripping the edge of the crate. She had spent so long burying her past, shielding herself from its weight, that the thought of unearthing it now felt like reopening an old wound. But Tariq's gaze was steady, and for the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't facing this alone. "They don't want me," she said finally, her voice trembling. "They want what I know." Tariq frowned. "What do you mean?" Nia took a deep breath, her eyes fixed on the ground as she spoke. "When I escaped the militia in Ghana, I wasn't just running for my life. I was running with something they didn't want me to have: proof. Documents, names, transactions. Everything that ties them to powerful people across the world. Politicians, businessmen, even some of the people who were at that auction." Tariq's expression darkened. "You have evidence." "I did," Nia admitted. "I hid it before I left Africa. But they know I'm the only one who can retrieve it. That's why they've been hunting me, to silence me." The gravity of her words settled over Tariq like a storm cloud. He had suspected there was more to her story, but this revelation changed everything. This wasn't just about her survival. It was about dismantling a network of corruption and exploitation that reached far beyond her. "Where is it?" he asked. Nia hesitated, her eyes narrowing. "Why do you care? You're a businessman, Tariq." "This isn't your fight." Tariq leaned forward, his voice steady and resolute. "Because I've seen what happens when people turn a blind eye to injustice. I spent my life building an empire, thinking success would insulate me from the world's ugliness. But the truth is, If I don't stand for something now, all of it means nothing. Ania searched his face, looking for any hint of insincerity, but she found none. She let out a shaky breath. It's hidden in a small village, near the Ghanaian border. I buried it before I fled. Tariq nodded, his mind already racing with plans. We'll retrieve it, and we'll make sure it sees the light of day. Unia's eyes widened. You don't understand. Going back there is suicide. They have people everywhere. They'll kill us before we get close. Not if we're smart about it, Tariq said. We'll need a team, resources, and a plan. But first, we need to get you somewhere safe. Naya shook her head firmly. No more running. If we're doing this, it's side by side. Tariq's mouth tightened, but he gave a curt nod. Side by side. Then, their exchange was cut short as Malik approached, his face etched with worry. Sir, we've picked up another transmission. They know we're onto them, and they're gearing up to strike harder. Tariq's expression grew steely. Let them try. We'll be waiting. Naya rose, her determination solidifying. For the first time in years, fear gave way to a spark of hope. Tariq wasn't another figure trying to shape her fate. He was giving her the chance to seize it. As Naya and Tariq braced for the battle ahead, the stakes couldn't be greater. United, they would confront a foe that fed on terror and deceit. But would their bravery and resolve suffice to deliver justice in a world shrouded in lies? If this tale stirred your soul, please subscribe, like, and share this video. Stay with us for the thrilling conclusion of this remarkable saga.